What if the thing that decides whether a woman feels drawn to you happens in the first 60 seconds, and most men completely miss it? Not your looks, not your money, not even your confidence, at least not the kind you think. It's something quieter, something subtle, something hidden inside the way you speak. Because here's the reality most people never realize. Attraction doesn't begin with what she sees. It begins with what she feels when she's talking to you. And feelings are shaped by words. Right now, most conversations fail before they even begin. They sound polite, predictable, safe, and completely forgettable. She smiles, responds, and then mentally checks out. But every now and then, she meets someone different. Someone whose words make her pause, lean in, feel something she didn't expect, and she doesn't always know why. But there is a reason. Over time, patterns start to reveal themselves. Not lines, not scripts, but small shifts in language that instantly change emotional direction. Today, I'm going to show you 3 of the most powerful ones, not tricks, not manipulation, just understanding how human psychology actually works in real conversations. Let's start with the first shift, curiosity. There's a moment in every conversation where the energy either rises or dies. And curiosity is what decides that moment. Most men answer everything too directly, too completely. No space, no tension, no reason for her to stay mentally engaged. But the brain doesn't like unfinished thoughts. It wants closure. It searches for it, and you can use that naturally. Imagine she's telling you a story about her travels or something she's passionate about. Instead of responding with the usual, that's cool or nice, you pause slightly and say, you know what? You actually remind me of someone. Then you stop. You don't explain. You don't rush to finish it. You simply continue the conversation as if nothing happened. Something interesting happens in that moment. Her attention locks in because now there's a missing piece, a question forming in her mind. Who? Why? What does that mean? You didn't force anything. You didn't perform. You just left a small door open and her curiosity walks through it. Later, when she asks, and she often will, you don't talk about her appearance. You say something deeper. You have a very calm way of explaining things. Not many people do that. Now the conversation has meaning. Now she feels seen. That's the difference. The second shift, recognition. Here's where most men get it wrong. They compliment what's obvious. You're beautiful. You look nice. I like your style. She's heard it all before. Hundreds of times, it fades into background noise. But when you notice something specific, something she didn't expect you to notice, everything changes. Because now it's not just a compliment, it's proof you're paying attention. Maybe she explains something clearly. Maybe she listens carefully when others speak. Maybe she handles a situation with calm energy. And you say something like, you're really good at making things easy to understand. Simple, direct, real, no exaggeration, no pressure. Then you move on like it wasn't a big deal. That's important because you're not trying to impress her. You're just acknowledging something you genuinely observed. And that lands differently. Inside her mind, there's a small shift, surprise, then appreciation. Because very few people notice those details. And when someone does, it feels personal. It feels real. And real is rare. The third shift, intrigue. This is where most conversations either become memorable or completely fade away because predictability kills attraction. If she can guess everything about you within 5 minutes, there's no reason to stay curious. But when something about you breaks the pattern just slightly, it pulls her in. Not by being mysterious in a forced way, but by being selectively open. You share something unexpected, not something heavy, not something dramatic, just something real and a little different. Maybe it's an opinion that goes against the norm. Maybe it's a small flaw you admit without insecurity. Maybe it's a habit or perspective she didn't see coming. For example, I'm actually the kind of person who enjoys being alone more than most people, but only when it's peaceful, not lonely. Then you leave it there. No over-explaining, no trying to justify it. Now she's thinking, trying to understand you, and that's where intrigue lives. It's not about hiding everything. It's about revealing just enough to make her want to discover more. Now, here's something most people never talk about: the way you respond to questions. Because this is where conversations usually become boring. Question, answer, question, answer. It feels like an interview. Flat, predictable, draining. But there's a simple shift that changes everything. When she asks you something personal, instead of answering immediately, you smile slightly and say, "What do you think?" Now something interesting happens. She pauses, thinks, guesses, and in that guess, she reveals her perspective, her thinking, her personality. The conversation becomes interactive, playful, alive. You're no longer just responding, you're engaging. But here's the key: don't overuse it. Use it sparingly, naturally, because anything repeated too often loses its power. Now step back for a second and look at what's really happening here. You're not memorizing lines, you're shaping emotions. Curiosity creates attention. Recognition builds comfort. Intrigue sparks interest. Together, they create attraction. And none of it requires you to pretend to be someone else. In fact, the opposite is true. These only work when they come from a real place, because people can feel the difference always. And here's something even deeper. Your internal state matters more than the words themselves. If you're tense, your words feel forced. If you're calm, your words feel natural. Calm creates safety, and safety is what allows attraction to grow. That's why confidence isn't about saying the perfect thing. It's about feeling steady while you say anything. When you reach that point, conversations stop feeling like effort. They start feeling like flow. Silence becomes comfortable, laughter becomes natural, and you stop chasing reactions because you're actually enjoying the moment. And that enjoyment, that's magnetic, because people don't just connect with what you say, they connect with how they feel when they're around you. So instead of trying to impress, focus on creating an experience. A conversation that feels different, lighter, deeper, more engaging. That's what stays in her mind long after it ends. If there's one thing to take from all of this, it's this: words don't create attraction by themselves, but the emotions behind them do. Learn to guide those emotions and everything changes. Take one idea from this video, just one, use it this week, notice what happens, because awareness followed by action is what builds real skill, not theory, not overthinking, experience, and over time, you'll notice something shift. Conversations become easier, connections become deeper, and attraction stops feeling confusing. It starts feeling natural. If you made it this far, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more content on psychology, attraction, and human connection. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. And if this gave you a new perspective, share it with someone who needs it. Because when you understand people on a deeper level, you don't just communicate better, you connect better.